I used to think my Grandma Aurora was an open book. Her smile warm and her eyes full of gentle stories that seemed to flow effortlessly from her lips. She was the kind of woman whose presence felt like a soft blanket on a cold winter's night, comforting and safe, always ready with a kind word or a soothing touch that made you believe, even in the hardest moments, that everything would be all right. Her laughter, light and genuine, could fill the quiet corners of the house, and I believed I knew her completely. Her dreams, her fears, her quiet hopes buried beneath years of silent sacrifice. To me, she was an unshakable anchor, a steady presence in a world often swirling with chaos. But as I sit here now recalling those days, I realize how much I had missed. How many layers of her story I never truly saw. Because, in truth, Grandma Aurora was far more intricate than I ever understood. There were whispers I caught only in fleeting moments, hints of a past she kept carefully tucked away, as if some parts of her life were meant to remain hidden behind closed doors. I often wondered what secrets she carried, that gentle strength masking a deeper, more complicated story. It was after her passing that I first glimpsed the shadows she'd kept at bay. I remember the day I entered her attic, a place I had always been told to leave untouched. It was a quiet, dusty space, filled with the scent of old wood, faded fabric, and memories long since stored away. As I moved through the clutter, my fingers brushed against a small, weathered wooden box tucked behind some faded photographs and a stack of yellowed letters. It was heavier than I expected, and the moment I lifted the lid, a faint scent of lavender and aged paper wafted up, an almost imperceptible whisper of her presence lingering in the air. Inside, nestled among fragile, yellowed pages, was a leather-bound diary. Its cover was soft and worn, the edges frayed from years of careful handling. I ran my fingers over it, feeling the faint ridges of the embossed patterns, the slight give of the leather as if it had been well loved and often touched. The ink inside had faded over time, but the words still shimmered with a quiet dignity. Stories waiting patiently to be told. I held my breath, feeling a strange mixture of curiosity and reverence, as if I'd discovered a sacred relic. My heart pounded in my chest, a sudden rush of emotion flooding through me. Shock, awe, and an undeniable sense of connection to a woman I thought I knew entirely. In that moment I realized how much I had missed, how many chapters of her life had remained hidden, not out of secrecy, but perhaps out of necessity, out of love. The pages revealed more than mere words. They carried the weight of a lifetime filled with sacrifices, forbidden loves, silent fears, and moments of quiet heroism. I could feel her presence in every line, her voice whispering softly through the faded ink, telling stories that had been buried beneath years of silence. And as I sat there, clutching her diary close to my heart, I knew that what I was about to uncover would change everything I believed about her. It was a promise I made to myself then, to read her words carefully, to honor her stories, and to understand the depths of her strength. Because hidden within those pages lay secrets that could reshape my understanding of our family, of love and sacrifice that had endured beyond words and time. There's a gentle anticipation in knowing that stories long kept in shadows are now coming to light, waiting to be shared. And I want to invite you too to walk this path with me, to listen, to remember, and to discover the legacies woven into Grandma Aurora's quiet, enduring life. If you're willing to stay close, to listen with an open heart, I promise that together we will find truths that are both tender and powerful, stories that remind us how love can be hidden, yet never lost. Willow Creek was a place that seemed to hold its breath in the gentle embrace of late summer. The mornings carried a soft golden hue, with dew still clinging to blades of grass and wildflowers that nodded quietly in the breeze. The air was thick with the scent of earth and blooming jonquils, mingling with the faint aroma of fresh bread from Mrs. Harper's bakery, drifting lazily through the open windows of cozy cottages. Here life moved at a pace that felt almost timeless, where the hum of bees and the distant call of a meadowlark were the only sounds that punctuated the stillness. Aurora was a girl whose eyes held the shimmer of early dawn, curious and searching. She was small but carried herself with a quiet grace, her gaze often drifting beyond the horizon, as if she could glimpse the world that waited somewhere just beyond her reach. Her hair, dark as the deepest soil, tumbled in gentle waves over her shoulders, framing a face that seemed perpetually thoughtful, as if she was always pondering something unseen. There was a softness in her expression, but also a spark of longing, an awareness that there was more to life than the fields and forests she knew so well. Her family lived on a modest farm, nestled on the outskirts of town, where rows of corn and wheat stretched like a sea of green and gold. Her father was a sturdy man, with hands weathered from years of toil, and her mother's laughter was like sunlight breaking through a cloudy sky. Aurora's older brother, Thomas, was ambitious and restless, often gazing skyward, imagining himself soaring among the clouds as an aviator someday. His dreams seemed to shimmer in his eyes, a stark contrast to Aurora's quiet, contemplative demeanor. Her younger sister Lily was a delicate soul. Her voice was lilting and poetic, often reciting verses she'd learned from her favorite books, her eyes shimmering with wonder at the beauty in everyday things. Their days followed the rhythm of the seasons, mornings spent tending the animals, afternoons under the shade of ancient oak trees where Aurora loved to read or sketch, capturing the world in her mind's eye. She found comfort in the simple routines, helping her mother prepare meals, gathering eggs at dawn, or walking along the riverbank, tossing pebbles into the water and watching the ripples fade away. She often sat alone in the fields, feeling the warm sun on her face and listening to the hum of life around her. Yet, amid all this peace, there was a gentle restlessness within her, a whisper that perhaps her heart longed for something beyond the familiar fields and the quiet horizons she knew so well. Sometimes she would stare up at the vast sky at dusk, watching the first stars twinkle into existence, her gaze lingering on the distant glow of the city lights far away, an unspoken yearning in her heart to see those places, to experience the story she'd only read about. Her thoughts drifted as softly as the clouds passing overhead, imagining herself wandering through bustling streets, tasting foreign foods, feeling the thrill of adventure that beckoned just beyond her reach. In the quiet of her soul, Aurora carried a delicate tension, an awareness that her world, as beautiful and comforting as it was, might someday change. She sensed that the innocence of childhood was a fragile thing, easily touched by the winds of change that swept through the period's whispers of distant conflicts and shifting tides. Yet, she held on to her wonder, her love for the small details, the pattern of sunlight on leaves, the scent of wild roses after rain, the gentle rhythm of her family's daily life. Her heart, tender and observant, quietly yearned for the stories of the world beyond. She knew she was destined to someday leave this peaceful place, whether by choice or by circumstance, and that thought filled her with a bittersweet feeling. There was a quiet beauty in her dreams, but also a shadow of uncertainty, as if she understood that her life was intertwined with forces far greater than herself, forces that would someday reach into her world and reshape everything she knew. And so, beneath the endless blue sky of Willow Creek, young Aurora continued to dream, her spirit both grounded in love and subtly pulled toward the unknown, her eyes shining with hope, her heart quietly aching for all that lay just beyond the horizon. The days in Willow Creek carried on, quiet and gentle as always, with the sun casting warm golden light over the fields and the scent of fresh hay lingering in the air. Aurora's world was filled with simple pleasures, reading beneath the shade of the old oak trees, helping her mother in the kitchen, and listening to her father's stories about the land and the stars. But even in those peaceful moments, a faint undercurrent of change began to stir, creeping in like a whisper carried on the breeze. It started subtly, with the crackling of the radio in the evenings, the distant hum of voices from the city, and the occasional mention of distant lands at the market, where neighbors discussed news from far away. At first it seemed like just stories, tales from newspapers or distant relatives, but gradually those stories grew more serious, more urgent. The world was shifting beyond the borders of Willow Creek, and that shift was beginning to feel closer with each passing day. Aurora, with her bright eyes and curious mind, sensed the change deep within her. She listened carefully to the whispers of her parents, the worried tone in her mother's voice when she spoke of loved ones far away, or the way her father's brow furrowed when he read the newspaper. She watched her brother, Thomas, who seemed to thrive on the excitement, his eyes shining with a sense of adventure, eager to see the world beyond their quiet valley. Her parents, ever cautious, tried to shield her from the worst, but Aurora could see the worry etched in their faces, the way they clung a little tighter to each other at night. There was a silent understanding that life was about to change, perhaps forever. She felt that change like a faint tremor beneath her skin, a restless ache in her chest that refused to settle. One evening, as the stars began to prick the velvet sky, a letter arrived from her aunt in the city. Aurora's mother read it aloud, her voice trembling just slightly, as she recounted the growing unrest, the rumors of conflict, and the distant rumblings of war. Aurora listened intently, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and curiosity. For the first time she wondered if the world she knew, so safe and predictable, could truly be at risk. And then one crisp morning, as dew still clung to the grass and the air was filled with the scent of fresh bread baking, a stranger arrived in town. He was young, tall, and slender, dressed in a uniform that shimmered faintly in the sunlight. His face was partly hidden beneath a cap, but Aurora couldn't help but notice the quiet strength in his posture, the way his eyes held secrets she longed to understand. He rode into Willow Creek on a sturdy horse, stopping just long enough to ask directions before disappearing toward the edge of town. But Aurora's gaze lingered on him, drawn by an inexplicable pull. There was something about him, an aura of purpose, of mystery, that made her heart beat a little faster. Soon after, Elias, as he introduced himself, became a quiet fixture in their small world. He came to the general store, to the tavern, and often lingered near the outskirts of the farm, watching the fields with a distant look. His words were measured, careful, as if he weighed each one before speaking. There was a softness about him, but also a guardedness, like a man carrying a heavy burden. Aurora found herself watching him more than she should, her thoughts swirling with questions. Why had he come here? Was he just passing through? Or was there something more? Something he wasn't telling? She felt a strange flutter in her chest whenever their eyes met, an electric charge that made her cheeks warm and her mind race. There was a quiet tension in the air whenever Elias was near. Aurora sensed that he carried secrets, perhaps about where he was from, or what his purpose truly was. She caught glimpses of a scar along his jaw, a hint of a past that he tried to hide behind a calm exterior. His silence was filled with unspoken stories, stories that might someday be revealed, or perhaps never fully understood. As days passed, Aurora's innocence began to feel like it was slipping away, replaced by an awareness that the world was no longer a safe place. The distant drums of war echoed in her mind, growing louder with each passing day, and she wondered if her peaceful life would ever return. The stories of conflict, of families torn apart, of sacrifices made in silence, these no longer seemed distant or abstract. They felt real, tangible, threatening to alter everything she knew. She would sit beneath the old oak tree, gazing up at the sky, her thoughts drifting to the boy in uniform. She wondered about his purpose, his fears, his dreams. And with that thought, a strange mix of hope and dread settled within her. She sensed that Elias's arrival was no accident, that beneath his calm exterior lay a storm, one that would soon entangle her in ways she could never have imagined. The quiet serenity of Willow Creek was beginning to fracture, just as Aurora's heart was awakening to truths she wasn't ready to face. The world beyond the hills was changing, and her own story was about to become part of something much larger, something shadowed by danger, driven by love, and marked by decisions that could forever alter her destiny. They laughed and said, "You'll get lost traveling alone," as if the world was too vast, too dangerous for a young girl with dreams bigger than her small town. But I remember the morning I sent that postcard from Paris, the city alive with promise, its streets whispering stories of love and revolution. My heart was pounding with a mixture of hope and fear, knowing that I had stepped beyond everything familiar, into a world that refused to stay still. That postcard, a simple message, was my silent declaration that I was still alive, still dreaming, even amid the chaos that was spreading across the continent. Elias had become more than just a mysterious visitor. He was someone I started to trust, someone I longed to understand. We met in secret, under the shadows of the old oak near the river, where the world seemed to pause just long enough for us to breathe. His eyes held stories I couldn't yet grasp, depths that hinted at pain and courage intertwined. In those quiet moments, as we shared stolen glances and whispered hopes, I felt a fragile tenderness blooming, something rare and precious amid the darkness threatening to swallow us whole. He confided in me one evening about his true identity. Elias was no ordinary man. Beneath the uniform, beneath the secrets he carried, he was a scientist, a German, a deserter fleeing the shadows of a world at war. His mission was urgent, to find and secure a powerful encryption device, a relic from a bygone era that held the key to breaking the enemy's codes. The artifact, as he called it, was hidden somewhere beneath the old church, secured within a labyrinth of tunnels and forgotten chambers. It was a secret so vital that its loss could mean the collapse of hopes for many. The danger grew sharper each day. I could feel it in the whispers carried by the wind, in the subtle shifts of faces passing through Willow Creek. Nazi agents disguised as ordinary civilians had begun to infiltrate our quiet town, their watchful eyes casting long shadows over familiar streets. I saw suspicion flicker in the glance of a stranger, and the way the local shopkeeper's gaze lingered just a little too long on Elias. Sometimes I caught myself looking over my shoulder, my fingers trembling as I held my diary, my most trusted confidant. It was there I poured out my fears, my devotion to Elias, and the flickering hope that I might somehow help him succeed. One night Elias took me to the old church, its stone walls steeped in silence and history. We deciphered clues left behind by his late mentor, a master clockmaker whose intricate mechanisms hid secrets that only Elias could understand. As he explained the delicate workings of the labyrinth beneath the church, I felt a surge of determination swell within me. This was no longer just about love. It was about something larger. Standing against the darkness, fighting for a future where hope still dared to breathe. In that moment I realized how much I had changed. Once a girl content to read and dream beneath the shade of trees, I was now a participant in a silent war, my heart pounding with a mixture of fear and resolve. Elias's secret, his mission, became intertwined with my own awakening. I knew I could not turn away, not anymore. The stakes were too high, the cost too great. And yet, amidst the rising tide of danger, my feelings for Elias deepened into something more profound. His vulnerability, the way he looked at me with a mixture of trust and longing, made my heart ache with both hope and dread. Could I truly protect him? Could I keep his secret safe, even as the shadows drew closer? I clutched my diary tighter, knowing that every word I wrote was a thread in the fragile fabric of who I was becoming. A girl caught between innocence and courage, between love and duty. The threat was no longer distant. It was near enough to touch. I could feel the cold breath of fear on my neck, yet also a fierce determination burning within. The world outside might have been slipping into chaos, but inside me, a quiet resolve was taking root. I would help Elias, I would stand beside him, even if it meant risking everything. My safety, my family, my very soul. For love, I realized, was no longer just a fleeting feeling. It was a force that could ignite the courage to face the impossible. As I closed my diary that night, I knew the journey ahead would test everything I believed in. The shadows had begun to encroach upon Willow Creek, whispering of war and destruction. But deep inside, a new light flickered, faint but unwavering, born from the trust one had in Elias and the strength I found within myself. The world might have laughed and doubted, but I was no longer merely a girl with dreams. I was becoming something more. Someone who understood that even in the darkest of times, love and hope could still find a way to shine through. The air was thick with silence as Elias led me down the narrow, winding corridor beneath the old church. Shadows danced along the damp stone walls, flickering faintly from the flickering lantern he carried. Every step echoed, a hollow sound that seemed to echo the pounding of my heart. We had come so far, risking everything for this moment. Our hope, our future, perhaps even our lives. And now finally we stood before the sealed door. A heavy ancient thing carved with symbols I'd only glimpsed in Elias's sketches. He paused, eyes narrowing as he examined the intricate lock, a mechanism of gears and levers that seemed to breathe with a life of its own. I remembered his words, the stories his mentor, the old clockmaker, had told him about this chamber, how it was designed not just to hide but to protect. Elias's fingers moved deftly, guided by wisdom and instinct, and with a faint click the lock parted. The door swung open, revealing the chamber beyond. A vast space, echoing with the weight of history. Dust motes floated in the air, shimmering like tiny stars caught in a web of darkness and light. The scent of oil, age, and something more intangible, secrets long kept, filled my nose. And there it was. The artifact. The device Elias had spoken of. The key to decoding the enemy's shadows. It lay in the center, resting on a pedestal, encased in glass, shimmering with an unnatural glow. My breath caught in my throat. We had found it. All our hopes had led to this moment. But that hope was fleeting. No sooner had we begun to approach than a distant roar shattered the fragile stillness. The sound of footsteps, many hurried, relentless, grew louder, echoing through the tunnels like a storm. Nazi agents. They had tracked us, probably from the moment we slipped into the labyrinth. I felt a cold dread seep into my bones, an icy grip that told me we were no longer alone. Elias's face tightened, and I saw the flicker of fear and resolve battling in his eyes. He knew what was coming. Suddenly, the door burst open behind us, a group of soldiers flooding into the chamber. Guns raised, eyes sharp and merciless. We were trapped. Panic surged through me as I realized how little time we had, how fragile this moment was. Elias pulled me close, his voice urgent but steady. "Run," he whispered. "Get out with the artifact. It's the only way." We dashed through the chamber, chaos exploding around us. The narrow corridors became a maze of shadows and noise. I clung to Elias's side, every breath ragged, every. The night stretched long after I managed to crawl out of the dark, twisting labyrinth beneath the church, my breath ragged and my shoes scraping against cold, uneven stone. Every step felt like a betrayal. Each echo of my footsteps a reminder I was still alive, still carrying this heavy burden I didn't know how to set down. When I finally reached the surface, the air hit me like a blow, sharp, cold, and relentless. The world outside had moved on, unaware of the chaos I'd left behind, of Elias's sacrifice that now haunted every breath I took. I stumbled through the empty streets, my body trembling, heart pounding in a rhythm I couldn't control. By the time I reached my door, I was bruised, scraped, and hollowed out. I pushed inside, closing the door softly, as if the walls could shield me from what had happened. The house was silent, so silent that it pressed against me, filling every crack with a deafening void. Elias was gone. Just gone. And I was left with the ghost of him, clutching the artifact that felt heavier with every passing minute. I didn't look at myself in the mirror. I couldn't bear to see what I'd become. Eyes swollen, face streaked with dirt and tears, a stranger looking back at me. Instead, I retreated into the quiet of my room, clutching Elias's diary as if it could hold him, hold the words that might tell me what to do. But the pages were filled with his careful handwriting, with notes I hadn't understood before now, and suddenly, they seemed like secrets meant only for me to find. I opened it with trembling fingers and saw his sketches, his calculations, snippets of thoughts I'd never known. It was a fragile thread connecting me to him now, the only thing anchoring me to some semblance of purpose. I avoided speaking to anyone, avoided their eyes, their questions. My family saw my grief, yes. They saw the tears, the trembling hands, but they didn't see the storm inside. They thought Elias's death was an accident, a tragic twist of fate. I let them believe that. What choice did I have? To tell them the truth, that he had given everything, that he had sacrificed himself for that cursed artifact, would be to open a door I wasn't ready to face. Instead, I kept my silence, hiding the truth beneath layers of controlled sorrow, a carefully constructed mask that felt increasingly brittle with each passing day. The artifact still lay hidden in my room, wrapped in cloth, its weight pressing into my side even when I wasn't holding it. It was strange, how something so small could feel so enormous, like a leaden secret I carried in my chest. Sometimes I'd grasp it in the quiet hours, feeling the faint hum of its mysterious glow, and wonder what Elias had seen in it. Was it hope? Power? Something darker? I didn't know, and I was afraid to find out. But I knew I couldn't keep pretending, not forever. Every day I noticed shadows flickering at the edge of my vision, shapes shifting in the corners of rooms I'd once thought safe. I felt eyes watching even when no one was there. I'd catch myself listening for footsteps in the hall, for Elias's voice calling me. But there was only silence. That silence grew louder, more deafening, until I realized it was not just the absence of him but the presence of everything I refused to acknowledge. My rage, my grief, the terrible truth I couldn't speak aloud. Yet amidst the darkness something fragile stirred. A tiny spark, almost too faint to see. I found Elias's notes again, tucked away in a drawer, and for a moment, I felt that flicker grow stronger. His words, half-legible, hurried, filled with equations and sketches, began to whisper to me, telling me that maybe, just maybe, there was something more in all this mess. Something worth fighting for beyond the pain. A reason to keep going even when every part of me wanted to crumble under the weight of loss. In the quiet hours I started to sift through his things, searching for clues, maps, references, anything that might help me understand. I knew I wasn't ready to face the world, to explain why I was so hollowed out, why I'd hide in the shadows. But I could do this small thing. I could learn. I could remember. Elias's work, his hopes, his dreams, they were still alive in these pages, in the sketches that looked like puzzles and codes waiting to be solved. Sometimes I would sit and trace his handwriting, feeling the faint pulse of purpose stir within me. It was fragile, almost invisible, but it was there. A tiny, flickering light in the darkness. I didn't know what it meant yet, or where it would lead, but I understood that I couldn't let go. Not yet. Not when Elias's sacrifice meant more than I could ever say, and not when everything I held dear depended on the quiet strength I had yet to find within myself. So I kept his diary close, kept his notes safe. I let myself cry in the dark, alone with the ache in my heart. I didn't have words for what I felt, only a dull, persistent ache that refused to fade. But beneath it all, beneath the grief and the silence, something else was stirring. A resolve that was not loud or dramatic but real. A promise I didn't know I was making, to remember, to protect, to carry Elias's hope forward, even if it was only in the faintest whisper. For now that was enough. The morning sun was just beginning to cast a faint glow over the quiet streets of Willow Creek, but I had already packed my few belongings with trembling hands. Leaving behind the familiar comfort of home felt like tearing a piece from my own soul. Yet I knew I had no choice. The weight of Elias's sacrifice pressed heavily on my chest, propelling me forward into the uncertain world beyond. I remembered how, after that perilous night beneath the church, I had taken to the road with only the faint hope of safety and the fragile hope of understanding the artifact's true power. My heart ached for the peaceful days I once knew, but every step I took was driven by a steely resolve to honor Elias's memory and to protect what he had risked everything for. As I crossed the outskirts of town, I cast a glance back at the familiar silhouette of Willow Creek, feeling a strange mixture of longing and relief. I was no longer the girl who once dreamed of simpler days. I was becoming someone else, someone sharper, more cautious, yet still haunted by the shadows of loss. I settled into a modest room in a larger city, one that hummed with life and anonymity, where no one knew my face or my story. Here, amid the clatter of footsteps and the distant hum of trains, I found a strange sense of peace in my solitude. It was a fragile peace, punctuated by the constant awareness that enemies, agents of darkness, still hunted for the artifact, still believed I held the key to their own destruction. My days soon became a relentless cycle of research and silent study, the kind that devours hours and leaves the mind aching for clarity. Elias's diary, battered and filled with meticulous notes, became my most treasured guide. With trembling fingers I deciphered his coded messages and pored over sketches, trying to understand the true nature of the artifact. It was more than a mere encryption device. It was a vessel of intelligence, capable of unraveling enemy secrets and predicting their moves before they even made them. Every discovery felt like a fragile thread in a vast web I was learning to navigate. I learned to listen intently to the subtle cues of my environment. An unusual glance, a whispered conversation, a shadow that lingered too long. Each moment required careful observation, discretion becoming my shield. In the quiet of my small apartment, I taught myself to move unseen, to blend into the background like a ghost. I watched strangers on the street, noting their habits, their patterns, learning how to slip past surveillance without raising suspicion. I practiced disguises with borrowed clothes, muttered to myself in the mirror, and kept my senses sharp, alert for any sign of danger. The constant threat of discovery weighed heavily on me, yet I refused to surrender to fear. Elias's words echoed in my mind, reminding me that resilience was born from necessity, that even in solitude, I was part of something greater. The pain of loneliness was real, but so was the flicker of hope that I was slowly mastering the skills to protect the artifacts, and in doing so safeguard the future we all longed for. Night was the most perilous time. I could feel the presence of eyes watching, strangers who might be enemies, their intentions cloaked in darkness. Once I caught sight of a figure standing across the street, watching my window with an intensity that made my blood run cold. I froze, heart pounding, clutching Elias's diary tighter. My breath was shallow as I ducked behind the thin curtain, waiting for the shadow to move away. That moment, brief yet searing, underscored how fragile my safety truly was. Every step I took outside was a dance with danger, every glance a potential threat. But I had learned to move with purpose, to stay invisible, to listen more than I spoke. In this silent war, patience and cunning became my greatest weapons. Through it all, I carried Elias's memory like a fragile flame, warm, guiding, and fiercely protective. His sacrifice had imbued me with a quiet strength I never knew I possessed, a resolve to see this hidden fight through to the end. The loneliness persisted, yes, but it was tempered by a growing confidence in my abilities. I was no longer the frightened girl who had fled Willow Creek. I was becoming someone capable of standing firm against the darkness. As I sat late into the nights poring over Elias's notes, I felt a small ember of hope ignite within me. Perhaps one day I would unlock the artifact's full potential, not just for myself, but for everyone Elias and I had fought to protect. And so I continued step by cautious step, threading my way through the shadows of a world that seemed relentless in its pursuit. Every day was a test of resilience, a silent act of rebellion against the forces determined to snatch away the hope Elias had fought so hard to preserve. I knew the danger was far from over, that enemies lurked in every corner, their eyes always watching, waiting. But I also knew this. I had survived the worst, and I would not let fear define me. With Elias's memory as my guiding star, I would learn what I needed, master what I must, and carry the hope forward, quietly, fiercely, until the day I could finally reveal what we had all been fighting for. They laughed and said, "You'll get lost traveling alone." But I remember sending that postcard from Paris the morning after I left, a small whisper of my presence in a world that didn't yet know the depths of what I carried. The war had taken so much, Elias's sacrifice still weighing heavily on my heart, but in those quiet moments, I felt something stirring within me, a flicker of hope that refused to fade. The artifact I guarded, once a symbol of danger and secrecy, had become a silent testament to love and resilience. Its presence was woven into every victory, every secret message transmitted through the nights, frustrating enemies and guiding allies, often in the shadows where only I dared to tread. The days of tension and danger gradually faded into stories of triumph and relief. I remember the first time I saw the horizon lighten with the dawn of peace, the air thick with a strange mixture of exhaustion and joy. There was an almost bittersweet clarity to it all, the realization that I had played a part, however small, in turning the tide. The artifact had helped me unlock secrets that thwarted plans and saved lives, its subtle power intertwined with my own determination. I could feel Elias's spirit in every quiet moment of victory, his sacrifice now woven into the fabric of the world's newfound calm. As the war's shadows receded, I found myself drawn to the simplicity of a life where the whispers of the past no longer threatened to drown out the present. I returned to Willow Creek, where the fields still stretched wide and the familiar faces had grown older but no less kind. The days that followed were filled with a gentle purpose, helping others who had endured loss, sharing stories with those who needed comfort, and teaching children about resilience and hope. The artifact, once a burden hidden deep within my heart, now rested carefully inside a delicate music box, its surface worn but its significance shining brighter than ever. It was a relic of Elias's love, a symbol of the sacrifices made, and a reminder that even in darkness, hope can be preserved and passed along. Over time, I grew into the woman everyone now called Grandma Aurora, a figure of calm strength and quiet wisdom. I watched children play in the sun, their innocent laughter echoing the hope that had sustained me through the darkest days. My hands, once so steady in secret espionage, held stories that I no longer needed to keep hidden. Instead, I shared them softly, with a gentle smile and a knowing glint in my eye, teaching that courage isn't only found in grand deeds, but also in everyday acts of kindness and patience. My life had become a tapestry of simple joys, interwoven with the threads of sacrifice and love that had shaped me. And I often think back to those long nights of vigilance, to the moments when I wondered if I could carry the weight of it all. Those memories, now woven into my very being, remind me of the depth of human resilience. The diary Elias kept, filled with coded messages, sketches, and fleeting thoughts, had become a sacred relic, a testament to the extraordinary courage that had quietly transformed me. Its pages, worn but treasured, revealed the complexities beneath my seemingly ordinary life, the sacrifices made, the love endured, and the hope that refused to die. Looking around at the life I've built now, I realize how those turbulent days shaped the serenity I cherish. The war's end brought not just relief but a profound understanding that even amid chaos, love and sacrifice leave a lasting mark. My role in that struggle was never about recognition, but about holding on to the belief that even the smallest actions could tip the balance toward peace. Elias's legacy lives on, not just in the artifact hidden within that music box, but in the quiet strength I carry every day, in the stories I share, and in the love I continue to nurture in the hearts of those around me. Now, as I sit here, surrounded by the warmth of family and the soft hum of life's simple pleasures, I see the journey I've traveled reflected in every gentle line on my face. I am a woman who has loved fiercely, fought quietly, and given everything she had to protect what mattered most. The past still whispers to me, but it no longer haunts, it sustains. I am at peace, knowing that Elias's sacrifice was not in vain, that the artifact's true power lies in the hope it inspired and the love it symbolized. And in this quiet, unassuming life, I find the greatest fulfillment. A life of purpose rooted in love, sacrifice, and the enduring strength of the human spirit. They laughed and said, "You'll get lost traveling alone." I remember the teasing tone in their voices, the way they looked at a girl venturing into the unknown with a mixture of skepticism and concern. But I had already made my choice. The morning after I left Willow Creek, I sent a postcard from Paris, faintly smiling at the Eiffel Tower, knowing that somewhere in that bustling city, Aurora's story was waiting to be uncovered, waiting to be understood for what it truly was. That simple gesture was my quiet rebellion against their doubts, a reminder that even in solitude, I was carrying her memories, her hopes, and her unbreakable spirit. Now, sitting here holding her diary in trembling hands, I realize how much those words, the stories she poured into those worn pages, have come to mean more than I ever thought possible. Aurora's life was never just about secrets or artifacts. It was about resilience, love, and quiet strength woven into every line she wrote. The stories I once thought were mere childhood tales, spun to entertain or distract, have revealed themselves as metaphors, hidden messages from a woman who faced unimaginable danger, who fought her own battles in silence, all while wrapping her truths in gentle narratives. Her stories were her armor, her way of passing down wisdom to those who could listen, whispering lessons of courage, hope, and the importance of holding on to what is truly valuable. As I turn each page, I see her in a new light, no longer just Grandma Aurora, the storyteller who kept me safe with her soothing voice and warm embraces. I see her as a woman who endured storms I can hardly imagine, who sacrificed her safety and her peace for something greater than herself. Her legacy is not only in the secrets she guarded or the artifacts she protected, but in the unspoken strength that carried her through the darkest nights. Her quiet wisdom, her patience, her unwavering belief that love and hope could outshine fear. These are her true gifts, her enduring gift to me, to us all. Thinking back to the stories she told me as a child, I realize now they were more than fairy tales or bedtime comfort. They were echoes of her own struggles, disguised in enchanting words, guiding me to see the world with courage and compassion. I remember how she would smile softly, her eyes glinting with a spark of mischief, as she spun tales of brave heroes and clever heroines. Little did I know then that those stories mirrored her own silent battles, her quiet acts of defiance, her unwavering hope in the face of darkness. Each story, each lesson was a thread that tied her past to my present, weaving a tapestry of resilience that I now hold close. Aurora's life was a testament to the power of love, an unconditional, unwavering love that sustained her in moments of despair and doubt. It is that love that now guides me, that whispers to me in the quiet hours when doubt creeps in, reminding me that I carry her strength within me. Her sacrifices have become my silent vows, and her stories, her wisdom, serve as a compass. I see her in the struggles I face, in the moments when I feel lost or overwhelmed, and I realize how deeply her legacy resides within my own veins. She taught me that even in the silence, there is a voice, and in the darkness, there is a spark waiting to ignite hope. As I sit here, the weight of her words settling softly in my heart, I find a peace I never knew I was missing. The questions that once haunted me, about her fears, her sacrifices, her hopes, begin to find their answers not in grand revelations, but in the quiet understanding that her story is woven into my own. Her life, with all its complexity and quiet heroism, has shown me that the most profound legacies are often the ones left unspoken, carried in the hearts of those who remember and cherish. Aurora's story has become a mirror, reflecting my own fears and dreams, and in that reflection, I discover a renewed sense of purpose. There is a gentle comfort in knowing that her strength, her wisdom, and her unconditional love are now part of me, guiding every step I take. Her stories, once simple childhood narratives, have transformed into lessons of resilience, reminders that even in the face of uncertainty, hope and kindness can light the way. Her life has shown me that true courage is not the absence of fear but the willingness to face it head-on, carrying the memories of loved ones and the lessons of those who came before us. Aurora's legacy is a quiet symphony of love and strength, playing softly in the background of my days, urging me forward with a gentle but persistent voice. And so I hold her diary close, feeling the weight and warmth of her words, and I understand now that uncovering her story was never just about discovering the past. It was about recognizing that her spirit lives on, in the stories she shared, in the love she left behind, and in the hope that her life continues to inspire. Her legacy is a testament to the enduring power of love and the importance of honoring those who came before us, not just through remembrance but through living with courage and kindness every day. In this moment, I feel a profound sense of gratitude, not only for her sacrifices but for the lessons she quietly bestowed upon me. The stories I once saw as simple childhood tales now shimmer with new meaning, revealing themselves as beacons of hope and resilience. Aurora's life has shown me that even in silence, strength can grow. Even in darkness, hope can bloom. And as I close her diary, I carry her legacy forward, knowing that her story, intertwined with mine, will continue to inspire generations to come, reminding us all that the most meaningful stories are those of love, courage, and the quiet wisdom passed from heart to heart. They laughed and said, "You'll get lost traveling alone." But she knew that the bravest journeys are often the ones taken in silence, with hope as the only compass. The morning after those words, she sent a simple postcard from Paris, a city that had always seemed to embody dreams and secrets, a place where stories of love and resilience intertwined beneath the shimmering lights. That postcard was more than just an image of her travels. It was a silent promise that even in the face of doubt, she would forge her own path, guided by the quiet strength she inherited from her grandmother Aurora. Aurora's life was a testament to the power of unseen courage, to the kind of resilience that doesn't make noise but leaves an indelible mark on those who truly listen. Her stories, kept in a hidden diary, were more than mere words. They were lessons woven into the fabric of her existence. Through her sacrifices, her love for family, and her unwavering hope despite the darkness she faced, Aurora showed us that true strength often resides in the quiet spaces of the soul. It's found in the stories we carry within us, in the memories that whisper of resilience when the world seems harshest, and in the silent acts of love that sustain us through our darkest hours. If her story has touched your heart, then it has fulfilled its purpose. Because stories like Aurora's are not meant to fade away into silence. They are meant to be shared, to inspire, and to remind us all that even the smallest acts of courage ripple outward, touching lives in ways we may never fully see. Her journey teaches us that love and resilience are the greatest gifts we can carry, that hope can be a quiet but unstoppable force, and that the stories we hold close shape the legacy we leave behind. Each of us bears a silent diary of our own, filled with moments of bravery, love, and resilience. And it's through sharing these stories that we keep the light alive, passing it from one heart to another. So I invite you now to reflect. What secret do you believe Grandma Aurora held closest to her heart? Was it her unwavering hope in times of despair? The quiet strength she summoned in moments of fear? Or perhaps the love she kept hidden, just beneath the surface, for those she cherished most? These are the stories that define us, that remind us that even in the silence, there is power. That even when the world doubts us, we can find within ourselves a wellspring of courage and love that no darkness can extinguish. Please, if Aurora's story has moved you, let your heart speak in a simple act. Leave a like, share your thoughts below, or subscribe to hear more stories that remind us of the enduring strength of the human spirit. Because sharing these stories keeps her legacy alive, and it reminds us all that we are part of a greater tapestry woven from hope, love, and resilience. Her story is a gentle whisper that echoes through the ages, urging us to carry forward the lessons of courage and compassion, to keep writing our own postcards from the places where dreams and memories intertwine. As you carry her story with you, I leave you with a question. What secret do you believe Grandma Aurora held closest to her heart? What quiet strength do you carry within, waiting to be shared? For in the end, it is these hidden stories, the ones we hold close in our hearts, that define us and connect us across time and space. And perhaps the most beautiful lesson of all is that even in the silence, there is a voice, a love, a resilience that can change the world. Thank you for listening, for sharing in Aurora's journey, and for allowing her story to become part of your own. Remember, the stories we cherish and pass on are the true treasures of life. Reminders that no matter how dark the night, hope and love will always find a way to shine through. So carry her story forward, and may your own secret be a beacon of light in the lives of those around you.